Renee, why are you here today at Parliament House?
Well, for one reason, and that's to stop the bullets on our beautiful Brumbies here in Victoria, and to send a strong message to Lily D'Ambrosio that she needs to be looking at other options other than bullets. And I think after today's talk, a lot more people will have a good idea on how valued these Brumbies are, not just as a rehoming Brumby, but also to be left wild and free out in the environment.
And I see that you're wearing a Defence Force uniform. What's the historical significance of the Brumbies?
Brumbies were used in World War I, World War II in the light horse, carrying out the soldiers. My grandfather served in World War I and II. He put his age down in World War II because he was too old. Cousin rode in the army in the light horse. And that's why I'm here today, for the Brumbies and for my relatives.
So that's a very serious weapon that's there on that image you hold.
Yeah, well, this is the actual weapon that has been approved by Parks Victoria, and this is what the contractors will be using. They're the bullets that will be going through those faces. And that's only if the shooter is an accurate shooter, because a lot of the Brumbies that we've been finding, they've been shot in the guts, they've been shot through the legs, just to immobilise them. They aren't shot humanely or even with the standard operating procedures.
I can see as I look into the crowd the emotion of some people who have been a voice for so many years for these beautiful animals who are under threat of being shot. Slaughtered. The Labor government, who has been hiding their plan, hiding what they've been doing, have finally admitted what they intend to do. What they intend to do is eradicate, and that is their word, eradicate every last Brumby. It is a crime. It is a crime what they plan to do.
Since the government's made the announcement of shooting and eradicating our wild horses, it's brought a whole lot of different groups. I run a Brumby group in New South Wales. We're just on the border, so we take Barmah horses and Cosy horses as well. And unfortunately, we have to all be here, and we're all going to fight to stop them from shooting the wild horses.
we've managed to rehome a lot, do it in a bit of a different way, and that's the good thing about all of our rehoming groups is that we all rehome in a different way, and but we're all dedicated to stopping an unnecessary slaughter. There's so many of us who are just so dedicated to wanting to see these brumbies live. They're such magnificent and noble creatures at the end of the day, and it's so unnecessary that there's the slaughter that's being proposed by the Victorian Government. What the Victorian Government needs to do is to look at different ways of making sure that we have the answer of being able to manage.
The Labor Government and the Greens, they don't care. They just don't care. They have no heart, no feelings for the Brumbies.
Of horses that served our country in many theatres of war. It's deplorable. It's abhorrent. Imagine, if you will, the 25th of April next year, all the diggers' relatives lined up, proudly ready to march on the war memorial, and some mongrel lines them up with a high-powered rifle, with FLIR technology, heat vision, and sprays bullets into them. We'd be up in arms. It'd make the front page of every newspaper in the world.
Right.
But they're prepared to do it to the direct bloodline descendants of the horses who served so valiantly.
I live in Shepparton. The Barmah is my backyard. I love these animals and I don't want to see them eradicated, as the government say. We want to preserve the bloodlines. Yes, the Barmah Brumby Preservation Group have been doing a fantastic job to put together their sanctuary, and yet the government... Well done. But the government prefer to shoot them than to rehome them on the sanctuary, or with the number of people who put their hands up to rehome a Brumby. It's just cruel.
My name's Julie and I'm the president of the Barmah Brumby Preservation Group. We're a group of people from Barmah up in northeast Victoria, and we've been fighting for over 10 years to keep the Barmah Brumbies alive and safe in the Barmah forest. So today the rally was a bit of an information place and a place to get together and protest against the government's culling of the horses.
And recently the culling activities have increased, or?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We took a stroll through the forest about 10 days ago now and accidentally came across 5 dead horses. We then went out the next day and did a walkthrough, and we've discovered 25 in total. We then got a phone call that night from a fella who also found another 8. So in one day there was 33 dead horses that the government has shot.
And did anyone in the community know that this was planned or happening?
No, there was no warning, no signs in the bush to say that the forest was even shut. This was all probably done broad daylight when people are in the bush. And yeah, there was no warning to the public. It was done very underhandedly.
Has anyone taken responsibility for the shootings?
No, they haven't taken responsibility, but they also haven't denied it. Interesting. When the first lot of Brumbies were found up there, I rang the Echuca police station as, well, what's going on? Is there a crazed gunman out there shooting? The police said, got nothing to do with us, ring Parks Victoria. So I rang Parks Victoria. The lady that I spoke to said she has no information on it whatsoever. She knew nothing about it. She put me on hold. She got back to me. She said, I've just looked up the latest lot of information sent through. She said, there is no information on any shootings going on in Barmah. And I said, well, how do you explain all the shot Brumbies? she doesn't know. So then I went on and I rang Dwelp, asked Dwelp the same questions. Again, they have no idea what's going on. So 3 agencies don't know what's going on? I don't think so. I think they all know, but they don't want to say what's going on.
A couple of women went up there to stop the shooting. So we met some locals, and then Phil Gaia stopped it at the last minute. And that's how we started. So we never believed that they leave the Brumbies alone, the government. So we came up with the idea to save many as we can. So first we wanted, in a bunch of 4 women, so first we wanted just to save each one. So we did. Then we had 7, and then I don't know, it ended up in 65, all in lockdowns, and we got the ones, all ours being from the snowy mountains in New South Wales, because in Victoria they left them alone, but now it's the other way around. So I'm really concerned about what's happened in the high country.
Do you have any type of political support for this?
We have our local politicians, and today the coalition has come out and made a great statement that in November, if we get rid of our Andrews government, who is the main instigator of all this problem, that they will stop the shooting, and they would like to start and support rehoming and even work with vets regarding fertility control, and, you know, take on a more humane and acceptable for society management plan.
No more shootings, no more hiding carcasses, no more employing people to cut up these animals, and that is what the tender documents the government has currently got out in the community show. They are employing people to do the most grotesque things.
What can we do
We
now?
will stop. Well, number 1, today we are using our voice.
Everybody that forces needs to stand up to this barbaric government who are hell-bent on crucifying part of our history. This is an ideological battle.
The way it will change is a change of government in November. And what we put forward, the Liberals and the National Parties, is an absolute commitment to you that there will be no shooting of Brumbies if we're in government.
What are you going to do right now? Nothing. You're being shot now.
Well, it's been happening for many, many years. You know, we go up to the high country quite frequently, and what I've been finding up in the high country over the years is exactly what we're seeing now in Barmah, and that is shot brumbies that have been covered up with branches. You know, we've even gone up with our metal detectors. We've retrieved bullets out of these shot brumbies. Unfortunately, there's not enough left of the bullet fragment to say exactly, you know, what type of bullet it is, but they all say they're a very strong projectile that would be in keeping with aerial shooting.
And why are they covering them up? I'm just curious.
Well, they say it's because they don't want the public eye to be looking at them just laying there. What also concerns us is, just on an environmental issue, is that all these rotting carcasses are just being left on the forest floor. And as we know, Barmah is a floodway for a lot of the water going down the Murray River. And with all these rotting carcasses, what's going to happen is that the European wasp is actually going to have a field day on all that lovely decaying protein out there, and it's going to affect all the bees, and it's going to affect a lot of the moths. And there's a huge beekeeping industry out at Barmah, and if we're going to have a big explosion of these European wasps, it's going to have an impact on that as well. Not to mention, you know, the whole issue of rotting carcasses out there. I mean, who wants to take their kid and go camping in Barmah right now? You'd be worried going there to get shot, and then you'd have to deal with looking at all the carcasses. It's not something I want my kids to see.
And one of the arguments, I guess, is that, you know, horses these Brumbies are native to Australia. So that's the main argument that's put forward. And but in a way, Australia, we have a culture of having horses in our culture, right? So especially in Melbourne, you see during November, it's like the horse racing, and we celebrate these things. And here we are, I guess, murdering or slaughtering the only animals that we have as a link in our wild environment.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, they were good enough to build our country with, they were good enough to put our soldiers on, they were good enough to do our fields, they were good enough to have in the Olympics, they're good enough to put in our currency, they're good enough to put on our stamps, but they don't have a place for them to stay wild and free out in the environment where they've been to for over 200 years. And just on that, interestingly enough, deer are actually protected under the Wildlife Act of 1975. Horses...
Why are the deer protected?
Ask Lily. Ask Lily. Deer are actually protected. I can only think that...
Is there more wild deer?
Oh gosh, yeah, there's like, you know, probably close to over 1 million deer just in Victoria. And, you know, we're talking out at Barmah by, you know, maybe 300 Brumbies. And she wants an eradication plan? Like, what government wants an eradication plan?
This sounds like an issue that should transcend politics. Why do you think it's become so politicised?
Why? It's got to be for votes. It's got to be for votes. It's also got to be from a really strong push from the Greens. I think there's a real extremist view that we're trying to wipe out a lot of our connection back to, you know, settlement of this country.
We don't know who's killing them, pretty much, because they haven't taken responsibility.
That's a community worry. I mean, not just for the public, but it's also a worry that our agencies are acting so irresponsibly and acting with no transparency. What else do they cover up? What else do they cover up?
And in terms of, I guess, what do you want from the government? Like, if you had a wish list, or if you had one thing that could...
Stop the bullets. Stop the bullets first. Let's get that management plan off the table. Let's talk about legislation to offer these Brumbies some protection, because right now they have no protection. At least with legislation, we can talk about rehoming, we can talk about funding and helping rehomers, we can talk about having advisory panels, both community and scientific, to actually talk to the minister. I mean, I would love the minister to join us out in the Barmah or up in the Vic Alps and come and see what it is she's killing.